Donald Trump is a raving lunatic. And if anyone in the world did not know that he was completely off his rocker, they found out yesterday. It is, even for an inveterate Trump watcher, shocking for me to see what the leader of the Republican Party and, I guess, our president of the United States will say in front of a camera, broadcast to the entire world. But what's shocking to me isn't what comes out of his mouth. What's still shocking to me is that there actually is someone who could pull the plug on him, right? This is now and has always been in the hands of the Republicans in the Senate and the House. In a heartbeat, they could get him out of office through a quick impeachment process in the House and then a quick trial in the Senate. They could get him out. This could be done in a matter of days or a week or so. But they choose not to. So I want to share with you the raving lunatic Donald Trump is. And I want to say, I'm not sugarcoating this. I was watching a bit of Heather Cox Richardson's show this morning from yesterday, and I appreciate that she's taking the position that she sees a sea change over the past 10 days. But let me tell you, I'm not sure. There's always a calm before another storm, and I don't want complacency. And that is why today I am having Leah Greenberg, co-founder of Indivisible, join us at 9:15, in part to talk us off the ledge, but not to make us complacent, to tell us what we need to do, because we are in danger every single day Donald Trump is in office. We need to put as much pressure as we can on the Republicans, who will never step up to remove him, but on everyone around us, so that when it comes time to vote, if we actually get the right to vote, we will do the right thing. And I say that in all seriousness. Donald Trump will get worse before he gets worse. There is no bottom with this man. So let me share with you what went down yesterday at the UN, because I'm not sure if you are going to actually believe this. I'm not sure where to start because it's all so damn crazy. But let's begin. Let's begin with how he began. Donald Trump got up in front of the UN Assembly and started to complain that the teleprompter wasn't working and that the escalator had stopped when he was in the middle of the ride on his way up to give his talk. Now, couple things. As we found out, the teleprompter was run by Donald Trump's people. So if there was a problem with it, it was the idiots that he hires to do shit for him, which should not surprise us. Remember, he doesn't bring the A team or even the B team. He is off the alphabet. His team once left secret documents on a copy on a printer in a hotel, right? We can remember his team uses Signal and brings in a reporter to a top secret pre-bombing attack private group text. This is his team. The other thing, how about the escalator? I'll tell you on the other side of this clip.
The United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations: a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
So he thinks they're laughing with him, and it's not clear. To me, it seems They're also laughing at him. Now, by the way, when you look at the video, the escalator didn't stop in the middle. It stopped when they were on like this. It was going up at the second step. Okay. Secondly, regarding that escalator, the reason why it stopped apparently is because, and you can watch the video, he had his videographer standing backwards so the guy could get a shot of Melania and Donald coming up the escalator. And according to the UN, this person, when he was going up at sort of the top, maybe something, he got caught in the sort of teeth of the escalator steps, which triggered the thing to stop the whole escalator. But, you know, to be clear, I think you need to see that this escalator did not, you know, there was no reason why anyone would have fallen. And I am sort of, I got to tell you, I'm possibly the person who is most afraid of escalators that I know. I'm like, I've got a major fear of them, mostly going down escalators. So this is would not be a comfortable thing for me, but I want to share with you what actually went down there. And it was not a frightening moment. So let's show you what happened there. And when you look at this, maybe you'll see the guy walking backwards. Let's go.
What happened with Chuck Schumer? Are you going to push Zelensky for peace, President Trump?
Okay. Can you see what's happening here? I think you probably can. Donald and Melania are walking toward the escalator. There's one man heading forward, and then his videographer is standing on the escalator backwards. And, you know, not the safest way to travel, but let's continue. And he's walking backwards. Now he's out of the shot. Now watch.
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle.
Okay. So that escalator did not stop in the middle. Also, once she realized it had stopped, Melania just started walking up. Now, that is how he began, but it gets even worse. I'm going to start next with so much, very much grifting Donald Trump, right? You're supposed to be running for president or serving the public in the public interest, right? Public service is how my mother talked about her roles in elected office. It's public service. Not private grifting, but for Donald, that's the first thing on his mind. It's always about him. Let's listen to what he said, the other complaint he made about the UN, right? It's about how he can't shake them down the way he can everyone else. Let's play this.
Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well. I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. It would be beautiful. I used to talk about, I'm going to give you marble floors. They're going to give you terrazzo. I'm going to give you the best of everything. You're going to have mahogany walls. They're going to give you plastic. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time, and which actually produced a far inferior product. And I realized that they did not know what they were doing when it came to construction, and that their building concepts were so wrong, and the product that they were proposing to build was so bad and so costly. It was going to cost them a fortune. And I said, and wait till you see the overruns. Well, I turned out to be right. They had massive cost overruns and spent between $2 and $4 billion on the building, and did not even get the marble floors that I promised them. You walk on terrazzo, do you know?
I don't care what kind of floor the UN has. I don't even know what terrazzo is. And also marble is very slippery when wet. So I don't know why this is even a topic of conversation, but he just starts talking, right? The teleprompter wasn't working and he was set free. Now, of course, he did actually turn to his script, which was, as you could see from the cameras later, it's in a binder and it's in all caps, with in some places with words large to emphasize. Now, in addition to praising himself and condemning everyone else, because this was all grievance. I hate everybody except myself, right? That was the whole purpose of the talk. This was centering Donald Trump, nothing to do with really anything positive about this gathering of these nations together, its purpose, its history. It was all about Donald. But he did manage to go ahead and make racist comments, including insulting the mayor of London. Let's play this.
And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed, so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. But you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
Okay. I just want you to understand a few things, which I think you probably do. The United Nations includes representatives from countries who are not Western Europe. So he's standing there insulting first of all, anyone who is Islam, who follows Islam, insulting anyone who isn't a white Western European. He is absolutely giving the equivalent of a speech, although it was a little low energy, that someone like Hitler or a white supremacist would give. And it gets even worse from there, if you can believe it. It is utterly, it is off the chain, perfectly in line with Donald Trump. And now, I believe, fully endorsed by the Republican Party, these views of white supremacy, Western Europe, ethnocentrism, and condemnation of any nation of people who, or any people who are, I would say, Black or brown. This is what he is doing. Let's listen to the leader of the Republican Party. And yes, he is the president of the US, but the majority of voters who voted didn't vote for him. And the majority of people who could vote also didn't vote for him. Too many did. He is president of the United States. I can't call him my president. He is the Republican leader. He is their party. I want to play this for you. This is the moment where we knew he was, if we didn't know before, a raving lunatic. Let's play it.
End it now. Let's see, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your country.
What is he talking about? You have to end it now. He's talking about immigration. He's saying other countries should do what we do, which is illegal renditioning of people, pulling grandmothers and children and hard workers off the street without due process, locking them up, expelling them from the country. That's what he's recommending people do. And think about who he is speaking to, as I said. Let's play it.
You have to end it now. Let's see, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. In America, we've taken bold action to swiftly shut down uncontrolled migration.
Okay. That is Donald Trump. It keeps going from there. When Leah Greenberg shows up, I will bring her up on stage, but I got a few more things to share with you. So how about this? Donald Trump also brought up how he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize.
His action. Now, after ending all of these wars and also earlier negotiating the Abraham Accords, which is a very big thing for which our country received no credit, never receives credit. Everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize for each one of these achievements. But for me, the real prize will be the sons and daughters who live to grow up with their mothers and fathers, because millions of people are no longer being killed.
He is speaking lies to people about all these conflicts he resolved. And these folks actually know. Now, one more thing, and then I'm gonna tell you something actually positive that came out. So this is my last rant from Donald Trump.
Don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign, they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything.
Okay. So I have given you some bookends. I have showed you that one of Donald Trump's first complaints going back decades is that he didn't get the deal to build the UN, and he still has a grievance to build that new building. And then also, he is pushing his merchandise, the hats. Trump was right about everything. I think this man is, as I said, a raving lunatic, but he is also a convicted felon, an adjudicated sexual abuser, an inveterate racist, a liar, and completely 100% supported by the Republican Party, because, as I said, they could easily, within a few days or a week, impeach him in the House, have a trial in the Senate, and remove him. But they don't mind him. In fact, they must support what he has to say. So I am now going to bring Leah Greenberg up on stage. I want to tell you a little bit about her. I think she has a cute dog. I saw this photo and I want to know more about it. But she is, of course, the co-founder of Indivisible. And as you know, Indivisible is about to have another No King's Day rally organized at the grassroots level, but sort of I think with websites from Indivisible and from 5051. And I want to tell you a little bit more about Indivisible. You know, it's a grassroots movement of thousands of local chapters. Their mission is to elect progressive leaders, rebuild the democracy, and defeat the Trump agenda. Leah, as I mentioned, is the co-director of Indivisible. She has done so much more in the policy space before that, but I want to mention that her co-founder and spouse, Ezra Levin, who you have seen on this show, have been featured as Time 100's most influential people of 2019. And with no further ado, she is waiting. Let me say hello to Leah. Hi.
Hello. Hi. Good to be here.
Good to see you. I don't know if I want you to talk us off the ledge, or if you want to, I want you to light a fire under us. Can you try to thread that needle, Leah?
Yeah. Well, so what I would say is we are in an incredibly dangerous and fluid moment in which, we're going to look back on this period. This is the period where Donald Trump is trying to consolidate power, and he's trying to consolidate power before the weight of his own unpopularity takes him down, right? And our task right now is to build the kind of big, bold, powerful, joyful opposition that collectively can block him from doing that. And that can look like a bunch of stuff, right? That might look like canceling your Disney Plus subscription 1 week. And it might look like showing up to a massive No Kings protest in October. But collectively, and it might look like organizing within your own community to find your own ways to push back, all of the above, right? But the way that we're going to make this work, the way that we're going to stop this kind of rapid effort at authoritarian consolidation fundamentally is about taking what we have, which is people power, and applying it to the people, the institutions, the politicians who are not doing what they need to do to stand up and protect this democracy.
I'm so glad you talk about people power, because as you alluded to, the boycotting of Disney and the canceling of Disney Plus and big influencers saying, I'm not going to Disney World, definitely was a factor in ABC, a subsidiary of Disney, putting Jimmy Kimmel back on air, right? We know there's some problems with the local markets and so on, but that was huge. We've seen that power. I'm going to show you a clip and see if you can provide a response. This is Governor of Illinois, Pritzker, talking about not wanting to normalize troops in the streets. And I want you to address this. So if you can, in the context of what you're talking about more of us than them.
I believe that one of the reasons Donald Trump wants to send troops into American cities is because he wants to be able to take control of the 2026 elections. Remember that back in 2020, he and Michael Flynn, the former general and former advisor to the president, talked about actually taking control of the ballot boxes in 2020.
Okay. I mentioned that because a lot of people are afraid of this in terms of rallies. And also, I'm out there with you. I believe in the Kristen Chenoweth 3.5% tipping point, but a lot of people are afraid we're not going to have elections. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, I think we got to see all these things as connected, right? Because fundamentally, we have to understand most of what they are doing as this bluff, right? Donald Trump, the entire like strategy of an authoritarian that people power can bust through is to project a sense of inevitability, to cow people into submission, to create for every independent institution, business leader, head of a university, independent politician, whatever, for the sense Donald Trump is going to win. So why am I bothering putting myself at risk, pushing back, right? And so
yes, the bluff. Okay,
yeah, it's a bluff. It's a bluff. And the assertion of the national, sending National Guard into the streets, threatening in ways to make it clear that he is going to try to threaten the 2026 election. This is all part of the same bluff, because if he can convince us that he's gonna steal the 2026 election, that he doesn't have to do it, because everybody will just kind of be demotivated and not turn out. So we have to have a really careful appraisal here, which is that we need to be real about the threats. And we also need to not buy into him claiming powers he does not have, or preemptively backing down because of threats he is making. Because functionally, at every stage of this process, we need to be saying, you're threatening to do that, and we don't believe you, and we're going to come out and we're going to project our own power as well, right? And we saw this with No Kings 1. There were a bunch of states where the red state governors threatened to call up the National Guard. Folks mobilized. They mobilized peacefully. They mobilized joyfully. There were huge crowds of people with American flags talking about how they were standing up for our democracy. And what they did was they called that bluff, right? They demonstrated that the way that you protect and continue to have your First Amendment rights is you continue to use them. And then if somebody is going to come after you, then they actually have to do the work of coming after you. They can't just threaten you into submission and then pocket that win and go from there.
I love this, and I'm so glad that you specifically talk about the First Amendment, because, of course, that takes many forms, right? It says that Congress shall not abridge our freedom of speech and religion and assembly, but obviously it extends beyond that because of many court cases and so on. But we're talking about our freedom to speak, our freedom to publish, our freedom to assemble and to petition the government for our grievances. I'll put the religion piece aside. That's also important. But right here, we're talking mostly about speech and expression. And along the bluff lines, I'm sure you've been following this, Leah, but Donald Trump has had 2 major cases dismissed, right? Just the other day, his $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times, the judge dismissed it. Now he can amend the complaint on what you might think is technical grounds, but as a law professor, it's thrilling to me. It's under Rule 8, the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. But basically, you won't believe this. The court said this is a complaint where you have thrown in your whole life story. It's filled with bragging and irrelevant information about you and your father and your businesses. Get rid of it. Get rid of that crap and actually file a complaint. If you want to sue for defamation, make out a defamation complaint. That got thrown out. And then just yesterday, the Wall Street Journal, in the case about the birthday book image, they made a motion to dismiss on more on substantive grounds, as Rule 12b-6, saying you lose. And I want to bring this up because I want to show some of this. So this is their memo, their motion to dismiss. And they're basically saying they move to dismiss the complaint with prejudice, meaning Donald wouldn't be able to file it again, and they want attorney's fees. And the key thing is, they start out by saying, Donald Trump brought this lawsuit to recover damages for publication of truthful information. Okay. And they said, they add They failed to plead actual malice, which is a standard. What's crazy in this lawsuit is Donald Trump claimed he was a private citizen, which is crazy. He would never normally do this. And then let me just get to one of the key things. The funniest thing in this case, which I've talked about, is because he's a public figure, you have to argue to win. He has to prove that, in this case, the Wall Street Journal published something false about him with actual malice. But the trouble is his lawyers are so stupid, or Donald is, that he thinks malice means disdain and ill will. But that's not actually what it means. It actually means disregard to the truth and falsity of the claim. The last thing on here is a reason why they're asking for attorney's fees and damages here, I think, is this last, let me just pull this up. The reason why they're asking for this is because there's these anti-SLAPP suits. That this lawsuit was filed to suppress speech, and so they should get their legal fees paid. So when you talk about Bluffs, I think a lot of people want to point to the cases that the U.S. Supreme Court is handing to Donald Trump in this emergency docket, like really bad stuff. And I often agree with the dissents, often, not always. But here we're seeing on the front lines of speech, we're seeing a lot of victories.
Yeah. Well, and I think this goes to the basic idea, right? A lot of the lawsuits, like a lot of the threats that Donald Trump has made, lawsuits or executive orders or, the like, they're based on incredibly flimsy grounds, right? And what has distinguished, what has been like a characterization of some of the early capitulations is they had, the ABC had grounds to fight back in their suit over the Kamala Harris interview, right?
Right.
These law firms, the law firms that he went after had grounds to fight back. And indeed, the law firms that did fight back were victorious in doing so, right? The basic theory that the Trump administration has been going is like, we're going to claim powers we don't have. We're going to assert we have the power to do things that we don't have the power to do. And people who are scared won't push back. And functionally speaking, that means we have that power. And so this is just a matter of collectively taking the people who are willing to stand up and applying them to the places that are necessary to generate massive societal pushback. That is fundamentally what happened with the Disney subscription cancellation over the last week.
And I just want to underline what you said, which is so important. We sometimes think, Donald Trump got to win, when it was just someone caving by choice.
Yep.
And with the Kimmel case, I don't know if you saw this, but last night, right before Jimmy Kimmel went on, and by the way, I never normally stay up to watch Jimmy Kimmel, but I did last night. I was like, my eyes were like, closing. I had toothpicks in them so I could watch it. But Donald Trump put this up like an hour before Kimmel went on. And he references the $16 million caving. Let me just read this, and I won't read it in his voice. I can't believe ABC fake news gave Jimmy Kimmel his job back. The White House was told by ABC that his show was canceled. Something happened between then and now because his audience is gone and his talent was never there. Why would they want someone back who does so poorly, who's not funny, blah, 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 blah. He is yet another arm of the DNC, and to the best of my knowledge, that would be a major illegal campaign contribution. I think we're going to test ABC out on this. Let's see how we do. Last time I went after them, they gave me $16 million. I mean, is that not Exhibit A in a complaint? And he's basically threatening to shake down ABC and sue them. And the question is ABC going to cave again? I hope not.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, look, you've also had a bunch of people in the Republican Party and the Republican propaganda apparatus over the last couple of days be like, this is not this isn't a censorship effort. This is backlash for blah, 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 blah. And like Donald Trump is out here being like, this is a censorship effort and I want money. It's very clear. Like he is not in any way hiding the playbook. This is just like mob boss governance. Right.
Right.
And, and also, again, like he is surprised right now because he's had a lot of success with some institutions like ABC in the past that have been doing this kind of cave, let him take more ground act. And it's our job to like start bucking up those institutions in more strategic and consistent ways so that there are more of them pushing back.
I love this. And I also think there was something weird that happened, Leah, yesterday. at the UN, not the weird stuff I was talking about, because that's sort of in line with Donald's lunacy. But he met, I'm sure you saw this with Volodymyr Zelensky. And after that meeting, Donald Trump announces, and I got to share this, great, but he's now saying we should support Ukraine, let them fight to get back their territory. And when he was asked at the UN whether NATO should be shooting down Russian drones or planes when they cross into NATO territory, which they continually to quote unquote do by accident, he said yes. Okay, what's going on? Is he going to change his mind when he gets a phone call from Putin, or did someone get into his ear? Because I actually find it even more disturbing that we don't know what he's doing from day to day. I don't consider this a promising story. I find it very unnerving because I don't believe him.
Yeah, look, we have spent collectively far too much time over the last 8.5 years having to think about Donald Trump's inner psychology, and
yes,
it's a scary bad place. It is a bad place, and we can all agree on that. And so my kind of meta strategy at this point is like, I don't take any individual Truth Social post very seriously until I have a sense of like I take it seriously in the sense that I think it's awful, but I don't necessarily, there are a bunch of things where he floats a trial balloon and it floats off into the air and nothing happens. There are a bunch of moments where he's kind of like going off on his own and his advisors rein him back in at some point relatively soon. I think we got to see whether this is the beginning of some kind of sustained pivot, whether this is like a negotiation tactic. You could imagine him just as easily thinking like, I'm going to go this way so that the Russians get a little freaked out and they have to, do what I want. There's a bunch of different ways to interpret what is going on. And fundamentally, I just don't think there's much value in trying to read the tea leaves on
fair enough.
This guy at this stage in his presidency. I think we got to watch what the hard mechanics of his presidency actually do, or his administration do.
So let's talk a little bit about what it means to show up at rallies. It makes me feel good, right? I feel good to be, sort of like being, the other day I went to a Tigers game because I'm in Detroit and I haven't gone to one in ages. I'm like, oh, sports are like protests, but with balls to throw around. Because I usually get that. I feel community, right, at a protest. But I'm going to push back a little and say, yeah, okay, 5 or 6 million people came to the last one. Donald Trump's still in office. Like, besides the feeling good, besides the data that suggests nonviolent protests can result in regime change.
Yeah.
What are the specific, and I don't want to discount that. I think that's good. Yeah. But what are our goals? Like, what do we think can happen if we show up, and what happens if we don't?
Yeah. So let me take a step back and situate it in kind of the political context, right? We are in the middle of this sustained sprint to consolidate power for a would-be fascist regime. They are trying to close civic space. They are trying to chill dissent. They are trying to penalize anybody who kind of stands up and pushes back on the regime. We know that. We've seen it in 1,000 ways. A large mass demonstration, protest is not going to solve everything on its own. Just to be clear, I want to be like super clear. Protest will not solve everything on its own, but large-scale protests happening everywhere in the country that bring out a diverse population across America, showing that there is mass popular opposition to what is happening, that helps to hold open civic space for more action, for more organizing, for more people who are maybe not going to go to that protest, but they look at the news clips, they see, oh my God, there's people out everywhere. Maybe it's a little bit safer than I thought for me to pull out my phone and film an ICE officer. Maybe it's a little bit safer when maybe it's a little bit safer than I thought for me to like stand up in my congregation and say, hey, what are we doing here? Like, we actually have to kind of create this symphony of defiance, right? We need people protesting. We need people organizing. We need people pushing their elected officials. We need people getting in the ear of businesses saying, what are you doing? We need people, demonstrating on university campuses saying, why are you folding to Donald Trump? We actually have to kind of create the surround sound of people opposing this regime and pushing others into action. And a large scale protest like No Kings does that on the front end and does it on the back end, right? The promotion for No Kings is an opportunity to talk to people, to get out, to achieve kind of mass visual saturation of the anti-regime pro-democracy movement. The follow-up is an opportunity to engage all of those people who came out, maybe for the first time, in some kind of sustained, ongoing organizing and activism, right? Because, if everybody goes to a protest and everybody goes home and they don't do anything after that, that is not a win. But what we're seeing out of these events is that they're actually forming the kind of like locus of more and sustained local organizing. We got people in small towns in Tennessee and Montana who had their first ever, political protest, and for No Kings 1 or for Hands Off, and who've now formed a local group that has become the hub of civic activism in their area. And now they're going, now they're doing a ton of stuff. These protests can kickstart and catalyze people's journey into political activism and engagement, whether that's going to be organizing mutual aid for your community, whether that's going to be organizing for a local elected official or candidate, whether that's running for office yourselves. These are the kinds of things that help to catalyze actions that go way beyond the individual day and help to create that symphony of defiance.
I love what you said, and this idea of a symphony of defiance, like keeping the civic space open, so critical. We see what's happened in Russia, the danger of being a journalist, where it's commonplace a journalist will just be murdered. I mean, it's just what's expected, right? It's terrible. I wonder, I love that you've gone back to No Kings, because even though I like Hands Off, I think No Kings speaks to everybody, because we know what authoritarianism with no input, what self-serving does. And Donald Trump is the epitome of that. And I think we even saw over the past few days, people, even Ted Cruz, who never says anything I approve of, said this went too far, canceling Jimmy Kimmel. So I do think the No Kings speaks to people. Is there a reason why that is coming back as a theme? Was it, as opposed to a different name?
Yeah. Well, first, I thank you. I can't take credit. It was really an organic and grassroots effort that bubbled up No Kings, right? No Kings started with the No Kings on President's Day demonstrations that the 5051 folks did back in February. We saw it.
Right.
We were like, oh, wow, this is a really important, this is a phrase that actually captures a lot about the moment that we are in. And I would say in particular, something that's important to me is that it allows people who are coming in from kind of a preservationist, save democracy orientation to coexist with people who are coming in from a kind of this system sucks and I don't trust any of it orientation. I think that's actually a really important part of why we wanted to stick with it, is we got to build a coalition of people who are trying to save something about the existing system and people who have no faith in the existing system for any reason, because it's kind of screwed them over. We got to get all those folks together if we're going to build the kind of big pro-democracy movement that we need. And so that's a big part of it.
Interesting.
And then
I like that. Sorry, because it's a transformation process, but also maybe someone who thinks the institutions are still working. I think there's also a piece of anti-oligarchy and plutocracy built into that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, No Kings means no oligarchs too. Exactly. And the other thing is, I think we can be a little too quick to move on from something that's working for us in the ecosystem. We always want to do something new and original, but actually repetition has value. We're trying to hammer home a pretty simple unifying frame for folks, and we're trying to build in strength each time we do it. And so, going back to No Kings felt like it made more sense than trying to land another thing and popularize another thing. People are bought in. Let's go.
Right. I mean, when you think about markets, branding is a thing for a reason.
Yep.
And branding doesn't have to be for a commercial purpose, right? It can be for something we're talking about here, which is about in the public interest, in the interest of true democracy. So, I mean, I think that's great. What else? I don't want to keep you for too long. I've got a couple things to ask you in a couple of videos, but is there something that you think I haven't asked you about that you've been wanting to say?
Well, I think there's one thing that I do just want to say, because I know people are they're looking for some good news right now, right? And I think the Disney news was the first big win that we've seen in a while. But I think something that people might not totally understand, if you're following kind of like regular press reporting is the scope and scale of the opposition happening right now. So I'm just going to give an example. So in the single largest mass one-day demonstration of the Trump 1.0 term was the Families Belong Together anti-family separation protests in 2018. They had about 750 rallies around the country.
That was over the summer, right? Because I went to that in DC. Okay.
Yeah. And it was incredible. And also hands off about 1,300 around the country. No Kings, about 2,200. We have every expectation that there are going to be more. The opposition is building at a scale that is like literally unprecedented in this country. And this is not just like, every city in California having a protest, right? This is like really red, really rural areas where people are often forming the first kind of progressive or liberal infrastructure that there's been out there for generations. And so I really think it's easy to look at the constant stream of bad news and say, oh, he's just kind of steamrolling forward. But the opposition is building, and it's building at a scale that we literally have not seen before.
Okay, here's my question. Does indivisible, or do you, I know indivisible is sort of diffuse, it's not like top down, but so let me ask, do you have a view on what to do about funding the government? As you know, it's going to, that the fiscal year ends September 30th. Yes, the House has passed a bill to fund. And let me just back up and remind the listeners, even though Trump's budget passed, right? That through reconciliation, there's a second step called appropriations. And unless you get all the appropriations bills passed, piece of government by piece of government, you need to do what's called a continuing resolution, for which you still need those 60 votes in the Senate. Long story made short, without some Democratic support, Trump, there is no, funding except for essential services after October 1st. What are your thoughts on what's going on with that? And is there a strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So we're part of a broad coalition of folks, and we're standing together with many, many indivisibles across the country and urging Democrats to fight back and to use all the leverage they have in this moment. Just to be really clear, there have been 2 points throughout this year, 2 points at which Democrats actually have this ability to say, no, legislation does not move without a compromise, without a deal with us, without working with us. It was back in March in the first funding fight, when Democrats caved in a pretty in a categorically dismal way. And it's this moment. This is the point at which there is leverage. And so, we stand together with a bunch of people saying, we got to fight for people's healthcare. We got to fight for our democracy. We got to make sure that there is a collective push at this moment for Democrats to use the power that they have and not just rubber stamp the next wave of assaults on people's lives and well-being in this country.
So it's funny that you should mention March. Can I play you what Chuck Schumer said back in March?
Mm-hmm.
I know you'll love this.
Difference to me between 2017 and now, and I've been at this desk for both of us.
It's different.
It is a full-fledged assault on the constitutional order that has not been seen again.
Well, that's
certainly in my life.
That is true.
But the question then becomes...
But that's not the spending part.
That isn't. But then the question becomes, what is the role of the minority in resisting that? That's distinct from, we're going to beat them on healthcare, we're going to beat them on spending Medicaid.
Look, if our democracy is at risk,
it is at risk. Yes.
Sorry, it is certainly at risk.
Well, do you believe it is?
But if
I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you believe it's at risk?
Trump doesn't obey the Supreme Court, which may happen, you led up to it here, then we will have two courts. We will have the federal courts, which hopefully John Roberts will stand up and make it happen. But we'll have the court of public opinion. And if that happens, as you pointed out, we have had rule of law since the Magna Carta. OK? And if that happens and the rule of law goes by the wayside, I believe that there will be very, very there will be immediate and strong reaction from one end of the country to the other in ways that we have never seen. And that's what will happen. And it's not just up to us. The people will have to rise up, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, not just, people, everybody. But our democracy will be at stake then. And if the people make their voices heard and are strong and stand up and we join them, I believe we can try to beat that back. We can beat that back. But it's on that one. If democracy is at risk, that's a little different than what we're talking about now, even a shutdown, as horrible as it is. We'll all have to stand up and fight back in every way.
I think actually this is useful because I do think, like, just in a genuine sort of good faith way, that there's a lot of people, and I think I probably count myself among them, who think that that's where we are right now.
Well,
that
I can't watch that without losing my mind because we should have done it then.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, Indivisible called for Chuck Schumer to step down after that. And that was not just like us. That was like, we called together our leaders. We had like an emergency meeting. We had about 90% of our folks saying, we don't have confidence in leadership after this. And, I think what really strikes me looking back on that in March is there's this playbook that some folks in Washington have been playing by, right? There's an assumption that John Roberts, for example, is going to serve as a meaningful check on Donald Trump, which, if you and I had been talking about this in March, did we think that? No, we did not.
Nope.
Right. There is a sense that someone else is going to stop this. And
like us, like you do it, we'll follow you, right?
Well, right. And speaking, I mean, I remember in that moment being like, look, I'm one of the people who helps organize the people to get in the street in that moment. And I am telling you that there actually has to be a partnership with Democratic leadership to help people understand that this is an emergency. We don't just do things completely independent of the opposition party. You actually are you're no longer, kind of the head of a political party. You are one of the leaders of the political movement for democracy in America. And that means behaving differently. And I think there's an opportunity for Democrats right now to try and do that, to try and show that they understand what's at stake, that they have the alignment to move together, that they're actually going to hold out and get caught fighting. That is literally what the shutdown would mean, is you're getting caught fighting. You're saying, we're actually going to stand together and demand that you protect people's lives, that you protect people's well-being, that you protect this democracy.
So last question before I want to ask you about this crazy town thing I do. But to me, I've been thinking about this, by the way, since the budget bill passed. I was talking about, why aren't we talking about the CR now? I'm really laser focused on the $75 billion new dollars for ICE. And what I hear Democrats only talking about is, we want to make sure your health care is funded. And for me, if I were in charge of things, I would have already had a list of things I would say, I will not fund the budget unless you don't fund ICE for $75 billion. I don't know what's on the list. Do you? What's on their what do the Democrats want?
This has been a push that we've made over the last couple of weeks, where we're saying, look, let's identify the priorities, let's get behind them, right? And we know we have some of them in place, right? So there's ACA subsidy extensions, there's Medicaid restoration, there's rescissions, making sure that the rescissions being the technical term for, like, the president needs to spend the money at the way that Congress told him to. He cannot simply decide to take the money and spend it on whatever the heck he wants. So that's kind of a basic democracy safeguard, right? So those are some of the core pieces that are already, like, on the table. I think the bigger thing is there's not a negotiation. Like, Donald Trump is literally refusing to meet or discuss any of this, right? And so it's not a matter of, like, are we having a conversation about it right now? It's a matter of, are you prepared to, like, collectively organize, stand up and say, this doesn't go forward until we can actually, like, get some people protected.
And the problem is, it's almost like the Democrats, one good thing is Donald Trump said, I'm not meeting with you, it's my shutdown. But now I want to hear leaders with their bullet points saying, we don't want to fund this. Here's our list, talk to us. But I feel like they're not being concrete enough. And you make a really good point. Maybe I'm just not listening. Okay. Are you willing to, before we close the show, do Crazy Town with me?
Sure. What is crazy?
You don't know what this is. Okay. You'll see. Don't worry. You don't have to, like, dance or anything. I play a little music and then I play a crazy clip.
Okay.
This little crazy dance. Okay. It's so stupid. Okay. Here's my crazy clip and we will talk on the other side.
You got to have to go back another year later. You're going to go back each year for 4 years, 5 years, 3 years. Just break it up. Break it up. Because it's too much liquid. Too many different things are going into that baby at too big a number.
Oh my gosh.
Thoughts?
Oh my gosh. All my thoughts are, how can things always be so awful and so ridiculous at the same time? How is that
And the
possible?
threat, I mean, the thing is, you're laughing because you're speechless, but we're talking about if the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella, is not given to babies. We're talking about them dying. We're talking about the elderly getting sick. The number of deaths on RFK Jr.'s head, and now Donald Trump, and then we've got the Tylenol or the acetaminophen issue. I mean, it would be laughable if it weren't so dangerous. And so this is, for me, what means I have to get in the street. I have to put my body out there. You're saving children. You're saving lives. This is no joke. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think that this is deeply unserious and awful people are creating profoundly serious consequences for the rest of us. And that's been kind of the consistent theme of this period, is that these folks they are themselves absurd, ridiculous, self-serving dummies. And also the consequences of that for our lives in this country, our health, are extraordinary and horrifying.
Well, thank you, Leah, for joining us. And everybody, we'll talk about it again. Go look for your No Kings October 18th protest and sign up if you want to. If you want to be anonymous, you don't have to sign up. And again, thank you for everything you do and for showing up for us every day.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Okay, guys, it was so great to have Leah here. I'm very inspired, feeling much better, and feeling like I can do something. I hope you feel the same way. Now, remember, no show tomorrow morning. I have to travel, but I'll be back here at 9 a.m. on Friday.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show, where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.